Welcome to CURES, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlin, and today's episode is sponsored by the Center for Advanced Reproductive Services in Farmington. Well, a new evidence-backed breathing practice is helping veterans de-stress during the holidays and actually heal from PTSD without the difficulty of in-person therapy that can happen. So joining me now is Leslye Moore. She is the National Director of Project Welcome Home Troops and a Master Sky Breath meditation trainer. We'll talk a little about what Sky Breath is. She's also one of the minds behind this Sky Breath meditation that is free, yes, free for veterans. Thank you for being with us, Leslye.
Thank you for having me, Cara. Really happy to be here.
So tell me about Sky Breath meditation and how it's free and really making a difference for veterans.
Yeah, so sky breath meditation, I mean, the interesting thing about the breath, it's so prevalent in, we're seeing it more and more in mainstream media and magazines and journals. But the power breath, or it's nicknamed power breath by the veterans, the sky breath meditation is a rhythmic breathing technique that gets down to the cellular level in the body. So the body keeps the score of everything we've experienced in our lives, good, bad, unpleasant. So it's trapped in our central nervous system. So the breath has this way of beginning to delink these experiences from our nervous system so that it gets released through the breath, which is pretty amazing. So we have this powerful tool like right under our nose that we don't pay so much attention to. So the sky breath meditation helps to delink emotions from a traumatic event or a stressful event. So the memory will remain there, but how we relate to it, how we associate to that experience will change, and it'll become more like somebody else's movie rather than our own experience.
So it's a 20-minute protocol. Do you always have to have a memory you want to release, or you just do this in general?
Yeah, so the technique is taught. It's meant to be a daily practice. So we have an in-depth practice that we actually do on a weekly basis. So veterans who go through the program, also their family members, active military, are welcome. So as they go through the program, they are taught this home practice. So I think of our group practice as kind of like a deep cleaning, like weekend cleaning. We might vacuum under the rug, whereas the daily practice is more of maintenance, and it has a cumulative effect. So the more we do this practice, the better our days go, the more benefits we get, both on a physiological and emotional and mental level. And I think of it like a shower for the mind. So we're busy, we brush our teeth, we take showers, but we have this gunk and this negative emotions and thoughts up in the mind, and the breath is that natural tool to begin to move that through our system.
So it's actually taught in a 5-session workshop, and it's offered at no cost to veterans as well as current military members and their families?
That's correct. That's correct. So immediate family over age 18. Yeah.
So, well, I know people are listening and thinking this is great, and how do people get involved?
Yeah, so they can visit our website, pwht.org, so it's short for Project Welcome Home Troops, and we have an upcoming training seminars on our page there, so individuals can go find the place that works for them. Currently, we're primarily online. We're slowly moving back into our in-person courses more in 2023, but online, the format's still the 5 days. We schedule times that work with people's work schedules, so they're evenings and weekends. And it's about 2.5 to 3 hours a day of a time commitment. And if it sounds like a lot to folks, it's not just teaching the techniques, but we take a very holistic approach to the individual. So it's a really mind, body, spirit approach to the whole being and addressing things on multiple levels. So it's not just the breath work we teach, but other facets of it. And it's a beautiful place for veterans to really reconnect, build some camaraderie, and really get some tools that can support them and their families. Great deal.
Yeah, so this is, it's virtual. I know you said sometimes you might be getting back in person, but I know that can really kind of remove obstacles for people. Talk about the science behind this. This wasn't just, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the internet about breathing and meditation, and it's all useful that it's becoming mainstream, as you say, but this is something that was really studied. There's science from Yale University, from Stanford, and more, right?
Right, right, absolutely. So this study that we're referring to in this interview was done at the Palo Alto VA in concert with Yale and Stanford universities. And what they found in this 5-day intervention was that the breadth of they were comparing our program to cognitive processing therapy, which is the VA's gold standard for the treatment of PTSD. Cognitive processing therapy is done one-on-one with a psychologist, generally over about a 12-week period. And our program, so it was kind of done parallel to that program. Ours was implemented. And what they found was our program was as effective, sky breath meditation was as effective in the treatment of PTSD and depression for, as opposed to going through the CPT. And what's interesting about that is cognitive processing therapy, it's very challenging. The veterans have to visit their traumatic events. It's one-on-one therapy, uh, and it doesn't work for everybody. It's not for everybody. So oftentimes there's a dropout rate in that. Whereas our program is very interactive. They don't have to talk, veterans don't have to talk about their trauma if they don't want to. And that camaraderie is there, that support. So has a very different effect of carrying them through. And one thing that's interesting too that the study found was around heart rate variability. So low heart rate variability is a strong indicator of PTSD. So they were able to measure a change in heart rate variability for veterans who've gone through the program.
Right, so it's really showing up on a physiological level too. And
Right.
the first sign or the first order of business usually when someone has PTSD is therapy. And we've talked about this for law enforcement as well, but you brought up some good points. Sometimes it's the actual getting to the therapy or the stigma, or maybe they think that's not for me. And oftentimes you're seeing that therapy, although it can be very helpful, there is a dropout rate. And there's still many times where they leave after that course of therapy with still a diagnosis of PTSD.
Correct, correct. And what's interesting, what we really see in our workshops is a pretty dramatic shift in individuals that they get relief pretty dramatically in that 5-day period. I've had countless veterans come onto the workshop who've either made suicide attempts or are currently having suicidal ideations, and by the 5th day they're saying, I don't want to die anymore. And there's just a powerful shift that happens in individuals. We see tremendous shifts in familial relationships, in outlook on life, that's miraculous to see in that short period of time.
And veterans are taught to be super self-sufficient, right? That
Right, right.
they don't want to lean on people sometimes, just the way they've been trained. So you're finding that this breathing practice still gives them that self-sufficiency because they're doing it themselves.
Absolutely. So we teach them this home practice that they can do on their own, and they also have what I call pocket tools. So if they're out and about, life presents moments for situations that may create anxiety or anger or frustration. And we have different breathing techniques for each of those situations where a veteran can quickly self-regulate and mitigate, an angry outburst, or if they're dealing with some anxiety, they can help soothe the nervous system in that way. So it's really powerful. And as you said, that it gives them that independence that they know, okay, I've got these, I can go to shop today because now I have these tools in my pocket. So if something comes up, I know how to handle it in just a minute or two.
And it's accessible. Apparently, you have taught thousands of veterans, and you're still amazed by how well this works. But really, they can
Yeah,
do it anytime, any place.
correct, correct. They can do it anytime, any place, and we always invite them to come back to take the workshop again if they need a reboot or refresher. So we're always welcoming them. We've a pathway forward in this program. We have veterans who are actually becoming facilitators and teachers of the program as well. So and the veterans become our greatest. They're our ambassadors of the program. Our program works because of them. They're doing outreach. They want to pay it forward. They're so service minded. They get relief, so they want to then pay it forward to those they served within their family members.
Right. And even if veterans who might be a wounded warrior, traveling is challenging, or maybe, they're going through their own stress because they're deployed, this is something that can be done anywhere.
Correct. They can do it anywhere, anytime. The only thing they might need is a little bit of quiet space, so they can create a little space for themselves. But it can be done anywhere, anytime, and it's just an amazing tool to have. And I know for any veterans out there thinking, because we hear this all the time, this is a bunch of hippie nonsense,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I
So answer
invite you, I
that. Is it
challenge
hippie nonsense?
hippie nonsense. So I challenge you to come try it. We've had many veterans who've come in very skeptical, and after the first night, they're like, "Wow, I slept for the first time in years tonight." So it really works. There's such power to these techniques. So so we love the skeptics. So we welcome you, and we'll make you believers.
Well, I guess you have nothing to lose because it's free. How is it free?
We're supported by donors, so we work by individual donors and around the country, and also we're have contracts developing with the military and with the VA hospital system. So, in any case, whether it's a community-based course or in a VA hospital or military base, the cost will be covered by whether it's an individual donor or an institution.
So I can't help but wonder, like, this must obviously it's free for veterans and it's targeted toward veterans, but this would work
Right.
with any human being, right, who's undergoing stress.
Correct.
So can other people use it if you're not a veteran?
Yeah. Absolutely. So we have a collaborating partner organization called the Art of Living Foundation. So that does have a fee to it, but they teach the same techniques. It's in a slightly shorter format for 3 days, but they're welcome to attend those programs and learn the same. That's how I came into this program about 21 years ago. I came in through the civilian program and never looked back. So any human walking on the planet has stress these days. So it is out there and available to
And
everyone.
could we do it if people are thinking, I need to help my teens right now too, because there's such an anxiety pandemic? Could you do something as a family? I know folks are going to have a little more time around the holidays. I think it's hard sometimes to say, let's all sit down and let's do a little meditation. This is more like a course, like you know what you're going to do each day. Can you get the whole
Right,
family
right, right.
involved? Or
Well, it's a great question. There are programs available for children for from ages 8 to 18 before they go, then the 18 and beyond, they're eligible for either one of the course programs we've been talking about. But the kids programs, they're not as stressed out yet. And the adults are dealing with different challenges. And because there is some dialogue that happens, there's some small breakout groups. So we have programs especially designed for kids to teach them how to be button proof, how to be stronger. It's called we're in school programs called Sky Schools, sorry, or Sky Kids. We're on university campus, Sky Campus programs. So youth around all over the place have access to this program as well. And those programs are offered through the International Association for Human Values.
International Association for Human Values. So for those who are listening, is there where do I know there's a veteran thing? I've asked a lot of different questions, but if people are interested to bring this to their school or their family, do we go to different websites, or we can find one hub to go?
Yeah, so so IAHV.org, so International Association for Human Values.org or IAHV.org, and you can find those programs there. And yeah, they're available.
And do you just download it to your device, or how does that work?
There's a registration process. So there'll be links to register for each of these programs. So we go through, especially with veterans, we go through a more in-depth process. We have an interview before the workshop just to get to know veterans and answer any questions and let them know how their experience might be. So there is a registration process for each of the courses, but they're available.
So you're not just on your own, because there is a facilitator. I guess that would maybe be the difference. For a lot of people might be doing the call map or the this or the that, but this is a little bit more, you're going to get some instruction and
Yes.
someone who's an expert like yourself guiding you through this.
Correct. So there's a certified instructor on every workshop and guiding the participants through, and there'll be other participants engaging. So it's a very interactive process. The going through the breathing techniques or guided meditations or different processes where knowledge for managing the mind is presented. So there are many different opportunities that things that happen during the workshop to unfold to give individuals that whole collective experience of well-being. People feel better. Veterans who never imagined they would say they feel happy again, they feel happy, they have a smile on their face. They call it a game changer. Really, that's what the thing that veterans will tell anybody is like, this is a game changer. If you want to change your life, this is it.
Well, and it's so empowering that there's this free tool you can't forget it because your breath is always with you. So,
Right.
and I know, the yogis and ancients and those folks have been telling us that for a long time. But like you said, some veterans might be saying, oh, that's hippie nonsense. But this is done in a way. Can you give people an idea of what they will do? I know we don't have the time for maybe you to guide us through the whole meditation, but what are you doing with this breath work?
Yeah, so there's actually about 5 or 6 different breathing techniques that we introduce. The core technique is the sky breath meditation, but there's other techniques like, as I mentioned earlier, one that will help with anxiety, one that will help with anger or to regulate blood pressure, one that helps bring focus and clarity. If we have a moment, I can actually teach folks. We're going into the holidays, so
Okay, yeah,
frustration
show
or
us
blood pressure
something.
may be up. So this is a very simple technique. It's called straw breath. So
Okay.
what we do is if you've ever held a balloon without tying it and you let the air seep out, it's kind of like some pressure going out. So we're going to do that with our lungs. So we're going to take a deep, full breath in through the nose. And then we purse our lips like a straw and breathe out. We'll do this a couple times. Breathe in again. So the longer and slower the breath is, a little pressure, a little force out. If you're experiencing anger or frustration, your kids or your relatives or the store clerk, somebody's making you nuts. This is a technique you can do to quickly settle the mind down, settle anger and frustration. If blood pressure is elevated on average, blood pressure will regulate and it'll drop about 15 to 20 points. We've had a lot of vets on our workshops who are skeptics about this technique, so they would have a VA doctor's appointment and would have the nurse do a pre and post straw breath test, and that's what they report back to me every time. Is on average their blood
Right.
pressure drops 15 to 20 points.
I mean, that's incredible. And of course, you have to remember to do it. And there's probably a little bit of, habit
Right.
training that you have these tools. But you're just noticing, some amazing results. And I love the fact that you said a lot of, I'm the daughter of a World War II bomber pilot who never, till late in life, talked about, his crew. He was the only one who wasn't killed or captured. And
Wow.
later on, it would become a story and even a movie. But up until then, the toughness, we're like, of course, all these guys were probably walking around with PTSD. They just didn't call it that back then.
Right, right.
So the idea of
It didn't
moving
have a
this,
name. Yeah, it didn't have a name until the Vietnam War, 1980. So there was no treatment, there was no help for them. They didn't have those resources. And so I have Vietnam vets who will come to me angry, saying, "Where were you? Where were you,
yeah,
in 1970? I needed you then." I said, "But you're here now."
you're here
And
now.
I've had tremendous stories. One of the main um, huge benefit that veterans get is that their sleep improves. So many of them have very interrupted sleep, night terrors. And I had a Vietnam vet who was a career military, served 30 years, and he's like, I haven't slept more than 2 or 3 hours a night since 1968. And I think it was day 3 or 4 of the course, he was laying down and resting after the breathing. And he's like, I felt like something snapped in my body, like a rope snapped. My whole body relaxed. And he went home that night. And I think he said he went to bed at 8 and didn't wake up until, 7:30 or 8 the next morning. So
I mean, that's pretty
um,
incredible. So what's happening? I
it's
mean, you're, as an instructor, what is that quote unquote snap? Like, what is that? They're not talking about their feelings, they're not with this, but they're having some of these instant shifts. So what is happening?
yeah. The breath is doing that process. It's delinking. So our nervous system is our central nervous system is full of all of these experiences that we've had in our lives, and so we keep that impression. The body, until it's processed in some way, the body hangs on to these memories, these physical sensations, even. Emotions, and they get stuck in our bodies. And so the breath becomes that vehicle to help them move through. So my hypothesis is like when veterans are having intrusive memories, flashbacks, or all of us have unwanted memories come up in certain situations, that it's the body is wise and innately knows how to heal itself given the opportunity. So the breath becomes that way. The certain rhythms that we're breathing in stimulates the nervous system in different ways and begins to release those impressions. So it's working on the central nervous system, it's working down in the cellular system. And at the level of the brain too, there's something we call one of our Army colonels, who's also one of our facilitators, and he's a doctor, calls it the lizard to the wizard. So the lizard brain is that reactive brain. So a lot of veterans, it's at the brain stem, a lot of it's that survival response to things. So there's a triggering situation, there's a reaction that's usually unwanted, whether it's harsh words or throwing something, whatever's happening in that response. The breath work moves us up into the prefrontal cortex. So that's where what we call the wizard. So that's where executive function is, decision making. So we're able to become responsive rather than reactive. So when we're operating more from the prefrontal cortex, we're able to be responsive in situations. So the mind is just settled down. It begins to calm down. So all of those ping pong balls and thoughts that are moving around unprocessed begin to settle in. There's something called memory consolidation that happens during sleep. So if we've got all kinds of memories, I think of it like dust and debris flying around the room. In our sleep, that's when that gets processed and kind of properly stored and put away. If you're not sleeping, as many veterans are not, these thoughts are not getting processed. The debris just continues flying around. So once they also start sleeping, which is happening, the breath stimulates a natural relaxation response. So they're able to process these things. When the body and mind are relaxed, these traumas can be processed out. These stressors can be processed out.
Without having to talk about it. It's something that you can, and I've done some deeper reporting on this, but I know you've used the ACT, in some of the background, some of this was used by, there's a process called ACT, which I know was invented here in Connecticut, but the idea that the memory is delinked, as you said. So it's like you've got the video, but you don't have the emotions attached to it. And that's something that you don't have to learn how to do, it just happens while you do this process.
Exactly. And I teach this program because my background is in humanitarian work, and I worked in Bosnia and Rwanda during the genocide. So I came home with post-traumatic stress, didn't know what to do with it, was having all of the anger, insomnia, all of the things that go along with it. And a colleague said, go do this breathing. And I lost a lot of people over there. I lost 50 of my staff
Oh my gosh.
in Rwanda during the genocide. So I put it on I put it back. I just ignored it as because I didn't know what to do with that. And now I can talk about that and be present. And it's a memory. It's, terrible that it happened. But the strong emotions, the guilt, the survivor's guilt, like all of those things are gone now. And I attribute that entirely to this breath work. So I teach it because I know it works.
Yeah, I mean, what better teacher than someone who's been through it? I want to just let everyone know that you have an online workshop coming up. It's after the holidays on January 11th. It's January 11th through the 15th. And again, you don't do this forever, but this is the initial to get going. It's free to veterans and their family members. For more information, people can go to pwht.org. That's pwht.org. I'm going to say that a couple times because I know it's not written there, but I'll post this on social media as well. So that specifically, that workshop, although we've said about this works for all humans, that workshop is for veterans?
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Specifically for veterans and their family members and military members as well. So that's our primary, core population we serve. We have begun to have some first responders coming in as well.
Okay.
Many served as veterans as well. So they're also welcome.
Yeah, and important because, it affects the whole family when someone has PTSD, and trauma can certainly be passed down through generations. So it's great that you are treating the whole family, and that I think it's also more supportive to the veteran, right? If everyone has those breathing techniques, they can get little reminders of, oh, Dad, why don't we do the straw breath?
Yeah. No, it's really funny. I have so many veterans will tell me that their kids get wise to them, and they're like, Mom or Dad, you're so much nicer when you go do when you've done your breathing. Like, so the kids, we get a little edgier, we get a little crankier. So they'll send them to the room to do their breathing because they know they'll get away with more, or Mom or Dad's nicer when they've done their breathing. So very supportive to all familial relationships. I've seen many couples on the verge of divorce who've been able to mend their marriages. Communication is better. Just when you remove these layers of stress, Uh, and a lot of the workshop is reconnecting to ourselves. A lot of veterans feel like I've lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore.
Okay.
And so there's that reconnection to them, to themselves, that aspect of themselves they thought they may have lost. And once we connect to that, then we can connect to anybody. It makes, when we're available to ourselves, we're available to everyone else.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the lizard to the wizard. We all want to come from the wizard. So
Right, right.
just a reminder to everyone, this is just a great resource. Again, no obstacles, because it's free for veterans and their families. So, and it's online. So www.pwht.org, or even check them out on Facebook if you're not ready to sign up yet. It's Project Welcome Home Troops. So you can find a lot of information, I know, on your social media. And just a reminder, that first event in the new year is January 11th to January 15th. So I hope we appreciate you coming on, and I hope that it can help a lot of people.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. And if you want more information on the cutting edge of wellness, you can follow me on social media. It's at Cara Sundlin, and join the CURES Facebook group. We like to share this content there. Have a great day, everyone, and be well.